Good Sunday afternoon. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. I just watched our men's soccer team win the ACC championship, so there's good things happening right now. Got to watch Ken and the team celebrate, so sorry I'm a little late. Appreciate you coming. Obviously, we have big news today, and in our football program and our athletic program. I met with Coach Petrino earlier today in my office and had a discussion with him about where we are with the program and about expectations, about where we want to go with it, and why I felt compelled to make a decision today versus another date or different reasons. But we had a good discussion. I left that and went over to the football office and met with Lorenzo Ward, who'll be our interim head coach, otherwise known as Whammy, and chose him to be our interim head coach. Whammy has great respect from the players, regardless of position. I've enjoyed watching that relationship that he's had, and felt like he was the one at this point that could step in and take over the administrative role as well as a leadership role in the program. And we had a good discussion, so he obviously wasn't waiting for my phone call, wasn't expecting him, but we talked to him and met. And then following that, we had a series of meetings after that. We have four other individuals who are no longer with the football program. So Ryan Beard, L.D. Scott, Nick Petrino, and Andy Wagner. Three are coaches, and one is in a support role in the program. And I made the decision that I felt like, after making a decision with Bobby that related to three family members and then Andy, that for 2 weeks it wasn't worth them enduring any additional scrutiny that's already been out there while they've been in their positions, and I didn't feel it was worth the players having to deal with the additional distraction. So I made a decision that I thought it was best for those individuals, because I really like those individuals. It's not a personal thing, it's a business thing, and felt like for them and for us, the better decision was to relieve them of their duties today and for us to move forward as a program. So after that, I've met with our players. We met in the auditorium and was clear about the decisions that were made, why those decisions were made, my expectations of them, what Louisville football means to this community, what our expectations are of them as players, my concerns. Obviously, I didn't belabor them, but noted my concerns around effort and cohesiveness, communication, etc. We had a very healthy discussion on that. It's a yes sir, no sir kind of audience, and a renewed enthusiasm in the room. And as they departed, everyone came up for a hug, and it was a good meeting, I'd say, good exchange. And then I'll circle back and have dinner with them tonight at 5 o'clock. As far as the coaching staff, I met with the full-time staff after that meeting, which I just wrapped up. They're clear on where we are, the decisions we made, again, similar to the conversation I had with our players, and my expectations on a turnaround immediately with this team, this very talented team, and how they need to get focused on North Carolina State this week. That we've provided the pathway for the students, our student athletes, to have a great week, work their butt off, but have a great time. And there's 2 weeks to do that, to really make a name for themselves as student athletes, and to some degree the coaches, but the players. It doesn't have to end on a bad note. We're 2-8. We don't have to be 2-10. It doesn't have to end that way. And even though people are writing that script for us, they can change that story. And it starts with them, and the coaches will support that, but we need the players to want to win and want to be here and enjoy football. And I want to see them enjoy football and had a great experience. And for the seniors that are here, we don't have a big senior group. But it's not fair to them to have to go out on this kind of note, that the season's tracked through 10 games, and that the last two can be different for them as well. And if the freshmen through juniors should respect that and give their utmost effort, and I know the seniors will, because nobody likes to leave on a sour note. I've been a student athlete. You remember it. It happens so fast. It's still shocking, even though you know it's coming when it actually ends. It's something you can really never mentally prepare for. So for some of those kids that are seniors, the rest of the room and the staff and others that support the program owe it to them for them to end on a good note these last 2 weeks. And in the same vein, they need to set an example for the kids below them. They need to set an example as a senior what it's like to be and to be a leader for the freshmen through juniors. And this can, you can end the season. I've seen it. You can end the season on a good note. You can see when teams win bowl games and try to parlay that into the next season, parlay that into recruiting. And I think this is an opportunity in the last 2 weeks to have some positive things around the program, have some positive things with the kids, and even as it relates to those who would consider whether they were leaving the program or not, it gives them pause. I think for those that are committed or considering committing to Louisville, it gives them pause to think about what we're doing with this program. So my role in that and the interim is not to be the head coach, but to certainly be heavily involved and support the activities of the next 2 weeks in every facet, and spending an inordinate amount of time with the program because it's very important to us to do that. It's certainly not an easy decision to make in some regards. I know that you're going to quickly jump to the financials, but in my life, there's been plenty of financial decisions that I've made, and you got to make the right decision. And I think that today we've made the right decision on behalf of the program, and I'm very respectful and appreciative of what Bobby has done for this football program and for the university, and his wins and the bowl games and all the fun that I've had as a fan and my family has been terrific. And whatever he does in his career from here, I'm sure he's not lost his talent, but in terms of what's happening in this program right now, it felt like we were in need of a change of leadership, and whether there was dollar signs or not attached to it, it's time to make that decision. And I made it with him today, and then made other decisions subsequent to that this afternoon. But we're going to get prepared for North Carolina State and no more. We're not talking about where we go and all the things ahead of this week. I spent my energy today on where we are, the state of the program, the expectations of the program for Louisville. And we know we're chasing Clemson in this conference on our side, and we got to get better. We got to have a better effort across the board, all the way through the athletic department, whether it be coaching staff, marketing, fan support, players, whatever it is. There's a high standard out there today that we've been witnessing, and that's who we're chasing in our division, in our conference. And the expectations, as I say, haven't changed on where we want to go with the program. But for right now, we're focused on what we can do today, tomorrow, and the next few days to get after North Carolina State. So with that, I'll open it to questions.
You indicated a couple weeks ago you'd wait until the end of the season. Was just the performance on the field such that you thought this needs to be?
Yeah, I think that, during the bye week was a time where I was hopeful to see a difference, see an improvement, see a difference in the effort, the attitude, everything. And I think after 3 weeks, I didn't feel like we made the strides I would have expected, and it moved things up for sure, because it's not normally my intent to do that. It was my full intent. I wasn't trying to be misleading to wait till the end of the year, but to use the football term, I called an audible because I didn't like what I was reading. And 3 weeks into it, I felt compelled to change the timeline and let's try to reinvigorate the program starting now rather than at the end of the year.
What was his reaction? Did he think he thought it was coming, or?
I don't know. I don't know what Bobby was thinking about in terms of our meeting today. I mean, try to be respectful. Told him I appreciated all he's done for the program, and getting us really, in some degree, where we are. It's been a group effort by some great coaches we've had come through here and players, and he's played a role in that. But I think we had just a simple exchange, and then wished him the best.
That was about 11 or so this morning.
11 o'clock.
Do you have the money, or do you have to now? How do you go through that process of figuring out? Do you have to buy out?
No, I think it's part of the the budgeting process. I think everybody's pretty clear on what our balance sheet looks like and what our endowments look like and so forth, but it's a combination of things. When we came into this season, you know, I think about where we are in the athletic department, and the balance sheet was one of the things probably that did concern me, on knowing that we had some liabilities going to be out there related, that we just taken care of, related to Tom and legal and NCAA otherwise. And it wasn't healthy to the degree I would have probably have liked to start with, and certainly got reduced during those expenses. But I'm still comfortable that we have a revenue plan and donor base that will be supportive of building that balance sheet, building those endowments back to a place that makes me feel probably more comfortable. And I'm probably speaking from a more of a former chairman and CEO aspect, but I think that one way to do that is I did build contingency in this year. There is money in our budget this year that I set aside. If it wasn't used, I would have loved to reduce debt. If it was going to be used in some way for unexpected projects or bonuses or whatever it may be that occurred from coaches doing well, that's generally where you pull upon it. I just bumped it up this year. So I came into it and said that to our staff and to our board going forward, we're going to have contingencies set to the side that won't be tapped in sport budget, and there'll be dollars to be set aside for capital as well, that we need to start building back a reserve in the department rather than leaning on donors whenever there's an issue. And I felt like that we were starting that process. This is unexpected, for sure. Didn't think we'd be 2-8 at this point. Didn't think those dollars would be going potentially towards this cause or next year's dollars in those similar buckets. But we created, I think, a pretty good discipline in last fiscal year leading up through June 30th of how to control our expenses. And that same discipline was parlayed into our budget, and we're in good shape through our first 4 months of this fiscal year financially. And those dollars are still protected and available, and obviously we'll be using that. We will, as needed, pull down on the Hickman Camp endowment, but I hope it's minimal, because if we do as well as I think on our budget, and if frankly we took a conservative approach on some of these things related to basketball, and season ticket sales have definitely jumped. We're narrowing the gap on the difference between what we budget and where we are even today. And as the season goes on, and single game tickets, that will, I think, benefit us. We did better in suites and football than we budgeted. There's some areas that I think we're in a good shape on, but we've been pretty disciplined in watching the dollars, and we'll continue to. But this is something that we'll have to endure the liability over the next few years. And I think I've got a good plan that I've presented to Neely to handle that. And I think Jeff Spelker, our head of finance and athletic department, has been terrific in helping me think about our cash flows and our balance sheet and where we are and how we make this work, because I'm not looking to ding all the rest of the sports to make this work. We got a lot of successful sports here that need their continued support. So there'll be other things, I think, that we have initiatives that I can't announce today, but I think there are some things, and it's not Cardinal Stadium I have ready to announce, but there are some initiatives that we announced Kentucky Farm Bureau. We have others that I think that'll be helpful in what we're doing in our operating budget going forward. Fundraising is in a good place today.
Vince, do you expect to pay Bobby his full buyout?
Yes.
What does that amount?
Approximately $14 million.
As far as what's next, do you have a short list of candidates, and what does that process look like? Is that you? Is it a committee? Who will be involved in the decision?
Well, I think one thing that's probably common amongst ADs is you're always going to have a short list, because if you got great coaches, there's the potential for them being poached anyways. It's not like they're held hostage to you, so you always got to be thinking about the what ifs. What if they don't perform, but what if they perform extremely well and someone else wants to dance with them versus you? So I think you always got to have that in your mind in terms of what's out there. It's not being disingenuous and pulling back on your current head coach. It's just being thoughtful about not being caught off guard in any of the sports. And I think we've proven, as we've had to make changes and we've added different head coaches in my tenure here, that we've dealt with, and this one's certainly a larger magnitude, but yeah, I think I'm cognizant. We pay attention to the college game and what's going on and who's doing well and who's up and comers and that whole aspect, whether they be a coordinator, whether they be a head coach, and you have to go through that process, and that'll happen. But it's not, I know it sounds great, it's not my number one focus right now. Today I'm just focused on trying to get some continuity in the program as we work to try to compete this weekend.
Are you a committee of one in that decision, Vince?
Well, I like to, you know, I have been to some degree in others, but I really do try to teach our sport administrators how to go about the process, how you think about recruiting, how you determine what the needs are of a position, and how we go about filling that, not get wrapped up in the emotions of what they're currently doing or what they, you know, maybe the pizzazz that they have. I think there's a little more objective than that. We've done that when we brought in Holly April and Scott Teeter and certainly Chris Mack. You can get wrapped up, even if you're hiring for an office position, you can get wrapped up in the glamour of their resume, but it may not fit what we have here. And I think it's with going the most recent one with Chris, you got to find somebody I think fits what Louisville represents and our culture and what we're developing here, and I think that's pretty key. And so it'll be collaborative, but I'll certainly wear the referee shirt.
A couple of players have already announced transfer, and then 12 others or so we're thinking about it. What do you say to those guys, and do you hope to get some people back?
Well, I think all of them are thinking about it. They may have filled their paperwork out. That doesn't mean they're gone. So I've been in contact with these kids. I'm close to our players, and with a lot of them, including the one, obviously in Jordan and Russ. I've talked to those kids, and so I'm aware of the situation. I'm aware of the decommits, the few that we had. Signing date's December 19th. It's not today. And kids haven't left school. They're enrolled through the end of the semester. So, you know, they can make their decision. I think, as I said, I think it's time for them to decide what they want to do, and we'll circle back with those kids, whether it be who we're recruiting or who's thinking about whether they want to be a Cardinal.
Is the $14 million, is that a lump sum you pay, or can you stretch that out over?
No, that's over time.
You know,
How long is that?
It'll be over the time. It'll be over the same term that it's valued at. That three years plus the end of this calendar year here.
You talked a little bit about the mood of your meeting with Bobby. What was the mood when you went over to meet with the assistants and the other staff there at the complex?
Yeah, I think they're trying to get their head around it, but fairly upbeat. These are real pros. This is the nature of the business sometimes in college sports, that there's coaching changes and the staff have ebb and flows. I don't think they're worried about themselves today. They're thinking about and should be focused on our players and the outcome here this week. And I'd say it was pretty upbeat. I mean, I think that they had some good questions, but I think I addressed all those points openly with them and made sure they were clear on my expectations of them.
The two players who decided to go elsewhere, does that fall on Bobby at all? Did you factor that into your decision?
Yeah, I don't know that all those things really. I don't know what went into them deciding to consider going elsewhere. We'll say that, rather than deciding to go. They haven't left. And but I think it's just watching a lot of things, Jake, in terms of there's a lot of dynamics. Certainly players have, sometimes they vote when they do those things that I'm thinking about leaving. Whether they want to come here, whether they're here and they want to leave, those things go into it. But I'm more concerned with who wants to be here and making them have a great time when they're here and enjoy it. And I think, you got to get on their backside and be hard on them and push them, whether it's in the weight room or in the classroom or on the field. But at the same time, they got to want to be here, or we're wasting our energy.
What's the most sellable thing about this job right now when you go out and talk to candidates?
Well, we've been a winning program. And I think we were, you guys have pointed out as much as anybody, it's the obvious. 2 years ago, we were on the cusp of pushing towards getting into the playoffs. We're not that far removed from that. I think facilities, we've improved. I think support, we're improving that and what we're doing, and the fan engagement, student engagement, no matter what it is. And I think that I think talent-wise isn't where we're playing. I think the talent's better than what you've seen in the scoreboard. And I think that there's a lot to sell in that. A lot of the coaches that would be interested in this job probably recruited a lot of these same kids that are sitting in these classes, particularly last year's class, which is very talented and has played a lot of minutes this year. So facility improvements that have happened since we're on the cusp of pushing in the playoff have moved forward, and but our results this year haven't.
And
This is
so,
a coach who has won here many years, this is the first losing year. What's your sense, considering the talent, of what went wrong this year?
Yeah, there's probably a number of things I could think about there, but the players aren't responding, and I think that's clear. I think that what you see and what I watch is, most of y'all know it sounds corny, but I watch the game the day after all the time and go through the film and just try to watch what I see, whether kids are standing up, whether kids chase pursuit, whether they stay in their lanes. If we got a house blitz, whether they're cutting a slant or laying off, all those things you can see an effort. And I think at some point, it does come back on leadership. I know it would, even in my office. If the staff that I have is not performing well, I expect to have a conversation with Neely. It's not going to be a pleasant one. And I think the same thing holds true, that coaches and players' efforts got to be going in the right direction. It doesn't feel that today.
it's just to kind of clarify, did you already decide before Friday that you were going to make a change, but maybe wait till after the season, and then after the Syracuse game happened, you needed to bump you up your timeline?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it played into it. I don't think we had our ducks in a row to. You just don't know sometimes, but I think that it was a disappointing effort, and when you have 10 penalties and 4 turnovers in the first half against a team that we've handled pretty well in most recent years and handled well at the end of last year, and I don't think our talent slipped that far down and they're slipped that far up. So at some point you gotta assess that, and that something's missing, and in this case I felt like we need to work with a different time frame, and it's today.
But before that game, you were already going to make a change, but wait till after the season?
No, I don't know that I was committed to that change. I was still hoping to see, but I would tell you that I was hoping leaving the bye week was the time frame that I felt we had 5 weeks to really assess where we are and kind of see where our staff is going to bring this program the last 5 weeks. And it wasn't moving in a positive direction the last 3.
You said you
Pat,
were.
did you?
Yeah, I'm wondering how you're going to balance being involved in the next 2 weeks with initiating a coaching search.
Yeah, well, I think, the thing is, you really don't want to get in the way of somebody else. There's a lot of coaches got to finish their season. I think I'm not looking to be a distraction to them or to their programs out of respect to their ADs or those coaches. They got to finish out. And I think it's time for us to focus on what we have here and how we're going to prove it. And it only improves my pitch when I do get to talk to the candidates. So I think in that sense, I'm not looking to run out the door or leave here and get on the phone as much as just make sure I've got a good inventory of where we are, where we need to make improvements, get feedback from players and coaches, and then be prepared when those conversations come about, as I was with Chris. I mean, I had a legal pad full of issues, and I would be clear what they know they have here in terms of resources. If it doesn't fit their needs, then we need to move on.
Given the amount of buyout, Neely or board members have to sign off on this, and
No, I felt I had the authority and I had her support.
Vince, what was your
We talked about it. We've talked about it, probably just a few weeks ago during the bye week, that I need to assess the program going on here. It's the white elephant in the room. We knew we had significant economics tied if there were to be a change, but I told her in fairness, this is the way I was going to view the program, and then I talked to her yesterday.
Can you avoid these kind of buyouts in the future, or are they just part of the deal?
I think it's the business model today. It may not be enjoyable, but I think it's part of the business model that, the glamour of trying to win, sometimes programs want to win at all costs, but I think that the way we structured Chris's and his buyout, we're not guaranteed the full contract. In his buyout, I don't think we're not going to be in a position where I'm willing to guarantee the full contract of any future head coach here on this type of. The magnitude of dollars is different today than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where people guaranteed full contracts. And I don't know how much is enough for people. But I think that I also recognize I don't want to short the program. But that's a fine balance that I have in knowing how far I think the Louisville program should go, and what we have available that they should want. And if they don't want to be here and the buyout is the sticking point, then they don't want to be here. It's as simple as that this is what we have to offer. I think it's a terrific package to offer, and that if it's all about what their buyout is to leave. They're on their terms or our terms, and we've got the wrong people.
Can you give us a sense for how much you had put aside in your contingency fund?
It's just a couple million or so this year that would be available out of the total contingency. The total contingency is a larger amount. It's about half of that I had set aside for rainy day fund, but it certainly wasn't targeted for this rain cloud.
Vince, how much weight did you put in comments from the fans, whether it be in person, social media, leading up to this decision?
Well, I don't know that I think that the fans certainly play an important role. They can be helpful today here. We have a lot of economics to overcome, and they can play a role in that. So all those that want to speak up and so forth, love to have their support today. This is a time you can help. But I think that, I made my comments regarding how fans can also help in the recruiting, and they can. And as we bring these recruits through here and do a crash course in the next couple weeks and what we're trying to get done, they can be helpful. As I say, they can be tiebreakers in the process. But I think about, what gets those fans excited and what gets those fans wanting to support this program as much as their cynical remarks and things that happen. That's just going to happen. That's just part of it. I don't know that I sit there and read all those to come to a decision. I look at what's happening on the field. There's a lot of statistics that back up what I see on the field, and then you got to have intuition as an AD as to whether a change is really going to move this in the right direction, and that's on me. I know it's a big decision. I know it's a big economic decision. I don't take it lightly, but I think I've studied it long enough to understand today was the right time to make that change.
The recruits that are currently committed, how do you handle the upholding those scholarships, or do you leave it to the next coach? I mean, signing dates, what, a month away?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's similar to what happened in basketball. Again, I hate keeping the reference at, but it's recent history. I mean, I stay in touch with what's happening. Today I'm recruiting our current players, right? I mean, I think that's much like basketball and going through the end of the season and the ACC basketball tournament. I feel like we're in a similar mode. I want to recruit the current players and let them be clear on what we're trying to get accomplished. Why they came here is still intact, and their expectations can still be met, while our expectations of the program can still be met. And again, I don't think we're that far away. I really don't. I don't think that talent-wise that we've got enough to win with. And I think you can see in this, on the younger end of this, that there's a lot to build on in terms of skill. And I'm excited about that part of it. But we got to draw it out of them and teach them what it's like to play their ass off in a Cardinal uniform.
Based on this recruiting the current players, do you think you're winning that argument after your first meeting with them this afternoon?
Yes.
Did you or anyone else in the department investigate the option to fire Bobby for cause?
No.
Did you meet with the other 4 individuals who were fired individually, or did?
Yes, individually.
As you observe those, I mean, he's got 3, his son and 2 son-in-laws, and the nepotism thing's been brought up. Moving forward, would there be any problem with another coach coming on if they want to hire someone in their family, on their staff? Do you see that as a problem, or do you feel like what you put in place will kind of take care of it?
Nice bait, Kent. Not sure why you were so subtle, but no, I mean, I think you do have to weigh these out. In the end, the way our nepotism policy works is you put it together, and effectively it's like the trainer at football. They're supposed to report to where I have AD oversight. And, this is something that, I walked into. We are where we are. I think I was clear with Bobby and the guys on, how that works. They know how it works. It's in terms of what goes with that. There's also a high standard, and you got to be careful there's not a double standard. You don't want that. I don't think we really had that going on. But I think in terms of going forward, I'm not afraid of it. It's in sports where you see where there's relatives in there. But I think you do got to weigh the magnitude of how many and what roles they play. And but I'm more interested in stacking up our staff's experience and qualifications against those teams we're competing with, and how we're going to compete for a national championship. And I think that's as important to me, and whether they are capable and have a resume to be a part of the Louisville football staff or any coaching staff here.
As you are now into this job, how important is a successful football program to this entire athletic program, having fans in the seats every Saturday for every game? I
think it's important to the community. I think it's important to the university, and certainly to the athletic program. you know, it plays a big role in our revenue base. It plays a big role in the ACC. You know, the sports, I think it's going in a great direction. I love the, you know, what goes on with the playoff, but it's definitely significant to us. I mean, you can look at our income statement and see what it is. We wouldn't have invested over $60 million in the expansion if we didn't think it was important, and we wouldn't pay our coach the level we have if we didn't think it was important. It's definitely significant, and it's material to our success overall as a department.
Do you think that the level of nepotism affected Bobby's job performance?
I don't know. I'm not sure I'd say that. I think that's probably getting deep in the weeds, but I think he's got these kids know football. Nick knows that playbook inside and out, and I think go on and do great things. They're all going to be coaches going forward. I don't see any of the three changing their career paths, and I'm going to be supportive of their career path. I just didn't think this next 2 weeks was worthy of them having to endure what's likely to come. So, but from that, I was clear with all of them on how I felt about them and their career and their next steps, and I wished them the best, and we'll be here as a reference.
Did you have a conversation with Dr. Bendaputi today, and if so, what was her reaction?
Not today. Neil and I spoke last evening.
Vince, there is a large portion of this fan base that really wants one guy for this job next. Do you feel the pressure in a couple weeks to make sure that you at least reach out to him?
No, you know, I don't even want to get into it, Kent, just because I hear it. I mean, obviously I know it. I know all the tie-ins that Jeff has with Louisville. I know the tie-ins that he and I have with Trinity. I've heard it all, right? But I still, that doesn't mean he wants to be here. And I don't, you know, I just don't think it's worth speculating until we get to the end of the season and think about who's out there. But I obviously this is a great, I got a great opportunity to sell a great program. And, but I want to be clear that this isn't a higher route of convenience. This is one we need to have that really wants to be here and is going to win here.
Would you feel comfortable hiring a coach before that coach coaches in that team's bowl game?
Well, I think you have to some degree. If you can, that's the better alternative because you have signing date on December 19th. And I'm not saying history is going to replicate itself from last year. The first early signing period we've had in football was December 20th last year, the 19th this year. 20 of our 25 kids signed last year on that date. So that weighs in the back of my head. I don't know that that's going to happen at the same rate. Call me wrong in a couple weeks or a few weeks, but I'm not sure at the same rate that'll happen. I think last year it was a little bit of a nuance, first time, pressure. Kids are thinking about musical chairs. They get left out if they don't get on the train with one or the other. So it'll be interesting to see whether it does repeat itself again this year. I guess maybe that it won't go to that extent, that we'd have 80% of a class signed on the signing day. We might. Other schools might. But I do feel like you better get pretty far down the path with your efforts, and it'd probably be better than worse to have them signed by the 19th.
Is December the 19th a line in the sand for you to make a hire, or are you flexible on that?
No, I don't want to pin myself to a deadline. I think we just got to find that right, person, that right role, and this one is a little unique that we weren't thinking about this. We thought, Bobby was going to be successful and be here a longer time, without a doubt. But I do have a list in mind. I think that. We'll further vet that. I'll spend a little more energy on it, but not certainly have any intentions to get in anybody's way to another program until the appropriate time.
As you observe the program, what were your impressions of the culture surrounding the football program? Did that weigh in on this decision at all?
Well, I think if you want to say culture equals effort, there's something screwy going on there because the effort wasn't what it's been historically. I've told the kids that. I'm not bashful about that. They can't hide from it. It's on film. So I think that, whatever the root cause was behind that, it needed to go away. And I think that, you rely on your coaching staff to get them to, really, as I say, play better, improve their games, improve the guys' game across the line from you in practice. But I also want them to have a great time. I want them to have a good experience here. It's a great opportunity. I don't want to sell you guys on it as much as I will the recruits, but this is a terrific place, and they're really entitled to a lot of good stuff that I know they're grateful for, and we want to get another great crop behind the ones we've had in the last few years and turn it around quickly.
I know the work is still to be done, but what adjectives are you looking for in the next coach?
The next coach, I mean, I think. The energy for sure, because it's going to take some energy to get in here where they are. It's not, they're not, the kids aren't going to just say, oh, great, we got a new coach and I'm just going to work harder today. You know, their ability to relate to the kids. You know, I've got 5 kids between 15 and 23. I assure you it's different than probably when I was 15 to 23. And I think you got to figure out how to, whether it's how you set up your recruiting process, what you do in your locker room, how it's set up, what you're doing, if you need a gaming room or whatever it is, how you relate to them. And you know, we've got to figure that out so that they know how much we really care about them and how much we want to win with them. And that they're the key. We're the stewards to their good experience here, but we need to bring in, you know, a coaching staff that's got the talent to foster that. But energy would be the first thing I think about.
You've spoken to the